Welcome to Colliers Talks, a podcast series featuring the latest trends, insights, research, and developments in commercial real estate in Canada and beyond.
All right, guys, welcome again. Good to see you guys.
Thanks for having us.
This is another edition of the wine tasting with Mark and Arnold with a little flair of real estate, and this is the RoseFellow edition. Really happy to welcome Sam Tsoumas, Mike Jager,
Thank you.
both co-founders of RoseFellow. Not new to the game, these two gentlemen, but a new venture, a little bit more than a couple of years old now, but has really taken off. So we're here to clink some glasses and talk some shop and some real estate. Introduce my partner Arnold Fox, Executive Vice President with Colliers International Montreal office, and myself, Jean-Marc Dubé, Executive Vice President with the Colliers Industrial Group and the Group Practice Lead. So enough of the introductions, and before we get started, guys, let's get comfortable. I think we should try this fabulous wine we were able to get for this podcast today. Today we're drinking Bruna Grimaldi Barolo from the Bricco Ambrogio Cru, which is basically a small portion of land inside the Barolo commune. Guys, it's a great wine. I actually happen to know this family very well. Went to the vineyard there. They've become friends. The grandmother, La Nonna, made us lunch inside. Wow. Like it was absolutely fantastic. So, you know, guys, I decanted this, and just so you know, not because it's a snobby wine or anything, but young wines should be decanted just to give them a little bit more oxygen. But hope you guys enjoy.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Mark, can you get this anywhere?
You can't get this. No, you can't. You can't.
He always says that. You can't get this anywhere.
That is nice.
So, guys, let's start with the elephant in the room, I guess. You guys came onto the scene. You've been in the real estate business for over a decade, long time. You're not your atypical real estate guys.
What gave it away? The tattoos?
We don't look like typical real estate developers. That's the main thing.
Yeah. So I would say that, you know, you may even be branded as disruptors and disruptors in a positive way, because we know that you know, in other industries, being a disruptor is an excellent thing, but in real estate, it's always been a little bit more stable. So talk to me a bit of your branding, your thought, your spirit of your group.
I think on the branding side, when Sam and I started RoseFellow, the one thing we wanted people to know was who Sam and Mike were, beyond just being another developer. You know, what were our goals? What did we envision for real estate? What was our passion? We started out that way, as opposed to presenting sites and what types of buildings we're going to build. We wanted people to know what happened behind the scenes at RoseFellow and how we're going to bring projects to the table. That was key for us, and let people know about our team. There was no one that was going to be hiding behind the scenes. We wanted to bring everybody that was important to us up front. And that included everybody from our urbanists to our construction division and everybody in between.
On top of that, mentioned before, we don't look like typical real estate developers. We're tattooed. We wear jeans to meetings. We wear Jordans. We baseball caps. We like being who we are. I think our energy is what takes precedence. We adore in development, especially industrial development. You know, Mike mentioned our team. Funny enough, I don't think there's a single person in our team that has a tattoo except the two of us. So
Same with our team.
So it wasn't about finding people like that. It was more about finding people that have the same passion that we do. Love development, love to take a chance. You know, I look at our team. Most of these people could have been hired anywhere. I mean, there's a strong demand for very high valued employees. They chose to come here. They drank the Kool-Aid, which is RoseFellow. So that shows me that, you know, they also want to be disruptors. Aside from that, at the end of the day, though, we are developers. We enjoy what we do. It's all about taking care of our partners, taking care of our clients, having fun, and being ourselves. That's really what it's about.
So you guys came from very established developers in the greater Montreal area, developers with great reputations, and a lot of people scratched their heads when you decided to create RoseFellow and go off on your own. I'd go even to say there were a lot of non-believers. How did you guys get through those hurdles? Talk to me about your first project. How did you go through those challenges?
I had to say on my end, it was hard. I have to say, I remember being on those first few meetings. You know, when we started RoseFellow, we would do presentations to brokerage houses. We'd meet with people, and we knew the whispers. I mean, we saw them. We saw the laughs. We saw, we'd do a presentation. We'd see people's eyes roll behind their heads. We'd see it happening. It was hard. For me, what helped a lot, interestingly enough, was the pandemic. It allowed us to almost get away a little bit from the industry, in the sense that we weren't seeing people day to day, and it allowed Mike and I to really focus on what we were good at, which is development and site acquisition. That's really what helped me get through that, but we saw it happening. I mean, people were very difficult.
The one thing that Sam and I had was our reputation. We didn't have years and years worth of development. RoseFellow just started, and the one promise we made to every broker, every landowner, was that if we put a property under contract, we would take it to the finish line. That's the one guarantee we gave them, that we will do a prior due diligence. When we're under contract, we'll do a thorough due diligence, and we will close. Unless we find plutonium underground,
right,
we're taking it to the finish line. And those that did believe us took a chance on us and chose RoseFellow over some of our competitors to put these sites under contract. And what we did is what we promised. We closed on them. And within our first year, we had a little over 5 million square feet of property.
Yep.
And we doubled that by year 2 based on promises that we made. Trust us, we'll take it to the finish line, and we'll do what we say we'll do.
So if I had to ask you which property you think put you guys on the map, like at what point did people say, after that deal was done, say, these guys are for real? Like, these guys have hit the market and they're now players?
I think I'll answer it a little more general.
Sure.
There was a cycle. We spent the first year acquiring sites. People said, okay, wow, they acquired sites. They got partners and they bought land. Couldn't they build them? We spent the following several months putting up buildings on those properties. Then the comments came up, well, are they actually going to find tenants? And then we did deals with the Steve Maddens of this world, the Dormez-Vus, the Nespressos. And I think that's what kind of solidified that we're here to stay, is when they saw the cycle happen from acquisition to development to leasing. That's when people said, okay, now we understand. It's not a one night, it's not an in and out. They're here to stay. It wasn't one project, in my opinion. Sam may have a different perception on that.
For me, it was almost similar to what Mike just said.
Yeah.
The difference was, first couple of developments we did, we were generally left alone in the market. I get the same sense that Mike did, which was developers and our competitors basically saw us, let them do that, and then they'll be done. And acquisition after acquisition and after acquisition, you started seeing a difference. They started paying attention to us, in pitches. But if I had to pick a singular file, I'd actually put it 2 files. Both happened roughly around the same time. We were a year into our existence. One was a site acquisition, a site in the western portion of the city, about 25 acres, which is one of the hottest markets in Montreal. Almost impossible to find a land to develop or redevelop sites. We were able to find a logistics site that was directly under everybody's nose. That was one that I think took everybody off guard, because it was a real large-scale development play in Montreal at that time. Second one, roughly the same time, was RoseFellow being awarded the Ford Distribution Center in Castleman, Ontario, which is at the border of Ontario and Quebec.
that was your first move into going as a more of a national national firm.
At that point, we had no sites really in Ontario. We were about a year old. To land a 531,000 square foot distribution center with a tenant like Ford against stiff competition, I think everybody kind of stopped and took notice, saying, how did they do this? Yeah. And from then on, I think they all took us a lot more seriously.
I think you were needed in the marketplace in some ways. It's an interesting way to look at it, but young, looking at the market differently, you guys were needed.
One thing that we did promise a lot of people is that we would be extremely agile and quick on how we look at sites. There wouldn't be any extensions required. We'll do what we need to do in a quick time frame, and people appreciated that. They appreciate the fact that we weren't taking an offer, flashing it to the market to see if we can find a tenant to then close on a property. Put under contract, do what we needed to do, close, and only then will we present a project to the market.
We also looked at things a little differently. Montreal in general was basically, 2 or 3 developers central for the last 15, 20 years. They were the kings of the castle. We came in and really changed that up. First and foremost, exactly what Mike said, agility, treating brokers with respect, a lot less red tape than normal. We also treat our partners like they're family. Most developers will send a 1-page pro forma and thank you very much. We're developers. We're the king of the castle. We look at it completely different. Without a partner, we wouldn't be where we are. So we converse with our partners. We bring them into our offices. Every stage of the development, they have full transparency. This is uncommon in our industry.
Quick story. I remember at the onset, we sent a pro forma for one of our projects to a very large institution in Toronto following our Zoom presentation. And he called me up and he says, Mike, you made a mistake. So what's the problem, guys? He goes, you sent me your pro forma in Excel. I have all 32 tabs of your Excel sheet in my computer. He goes, I'll delete it and send me back the PDF. I'm like, no. That was done deliberately. We want you to see every last deed. We want you to see every last dollar we make. The objective of a partnership is we're getting to bed together.
Right.
You need to understand every last detail.
So full transparency.
Full transparency.
So speaking of partners, when you started in this game, you were more on the private side partners, high net worth individuals, companies, private companies. You have pivoted now to, you started your first fund, you're on your second fund. Tell me about that pivot. Tell me about what made you decide to move in that direction.
That's a great question.
For me, Mike and I are undaunted by scale. We have an appetite, whether it's $100 million development, $25 million development, $5 million development, we like it all, we push. Another promise we made to the industry is we would change how the industry is viewed here in Quebec. We build on spec, which was uncommon. Montreal has actually a lack of quality Class A industrial buildings because no developers actually came in and built on spec. So from day one, RoseFellow was about building on spec. We announce a project, we will build it regardless of a tenant being there. Put all that together, there's a capital concern. Private individuals, you can only go so far. So when we tried to figure out what is the next evolution of RoseFellow, how do we continue in the path that we're going while keeping these promises? Funds were the logical solution. Take that, take being at the right place at the right time a little bit. Industrial was booming. We decided to launch the first industrial fund ever in Quebec. Quickly went through that.
And it's funny, that happened year one. We're 12 months into business. We call our lawyers, we call consultants, and guys, we're going to open up a fund. What do you think? They said, are you crazy? Create a track record. It's a year, guys. It's a year you're in business. Slow down. We said, no, you don't understand. We have these great opportunities. We have these great developments that are underway. We have more to come. We think this is the right direction for us. And everybody turned us down saying it's not the right time. So Sam and I did kind of like when we started RoseFellow and said, you know what, we'll figure it out. We'll do it on our own. And lo and behold, we put a list of investors we thought would be ideal. And we were fortunate enough to put together a mix of good public and private institutions in order to put together our first $100 million fund a year into business.
But you also saw those land values then. Like you had that vision as to where prices were going. That's unique.
I think we all felt, what Montreal was for the last 30 years, a very stagnant market. And we saw that changing. We saw that evolving. We saw the demand and the perception of Montreal changing. And we saw where rental rates can go. And we took calculated risks at the onset to offer the numbers we did on the sites.
Our first underwriting on rental rates, I still remember that, were $950, just below the $10 mark.
On a new build.
And I can tell you, our initial foray, 8 out of 10 people said we were crazy, but we already saw it happening. I mean, this boom in industrial, didn't happen because of COVID.
Yeah.
It was coming. It was happening before that. COVID just amplified it. So we already saw, rental rates were stagnant here for a decade. They were effectively $7, $7.25 triple net Class A.
For brand new construction.
For brand new, yeah.
And this is at a time where existing was $5 gross, but it was stagnant at $7.25 for a decade.
Yet vacancy rates for Class A 28-foot clear and above buildings were practically at zero for the longest time.
And we started seeing it go up. We're talking now 2017, 2018. We started seeing it go up. So when we started underwriting our first developments, we had put them at $950. And again, we got a lot of pushback. We foresaw rental rates hitting double digits. I don't think we foresaw how high it ended up getting, but we did see it.
Yeah.
We believed that it would get there.
Interesting.
So you're now a multi-provincial company. What are your thoughts on RoseFellow in 5 years from now? Are you national? Are you moving to Toronto? Are you
US.
doing US? What's loaded question, guys?
But smiling.
I volunteered the Miami office.
We're working for you.
We'll do it together.
We had a tremendous success with Ford Canada in Ontario. Again, Ontario next to the Quebec border, we'll call it, is been an area that we love. We see there's huge opportunity. We've acquired several sites since within that market, that Ottawa market. Will we grow into other areas of Ontario? Absolutely. There's other properties that we're looking at that are closer to the Pearson Airport. Where do we see RoseFellow in 5 years? Probably we're presently going to probably be close to about 30 million square feet in the province of Quebec, maybe equal to that in Ontario over the next couple of years.
I don't think we're limited by geography. One thing I've taken a notice of is all the aggressive and successful developers, in the U.S. and Canada, don't care about geography. They just have a passion for whatever it is they do, and they build. That's how we are. Whether it be Alberta, whether it be the United States, if there's a good development potential, especially industrial, we'll look all over it. Yeah, we're all over it.
We've always felt it important to surround ourselves around the best of the best. So that'd be the best architect in Montreal, Ontario, or Florida. That's the way we see ourselves growing into these other areas. You get the right contractor to work with you, who knows the market, you get the right architect, the right professionals. That's how you grow in a sustainable, proper fashion.
For where do we see ourselves in 5 years? Love to be one of the, we'll say the top in Canada at that point. I'd say that'd be a great goal to achieve. One of the larger industrial developers in Canada. With that requires growth in Quebec. We still see a lot of growth in Quebec, notwithstanding Ontario, which is an easy market to grow in. Quebec as well. I mean, both sides of it. We see a lack of quality Class A industrial space in the Quebec City market. It's a smaller market, but it is an emerging market for us.
100%
So we're looking
emerging.
at that. And even further out east, we see tremendous potential all over Quebec. For us, that's where we're focusing on, growing both sides.
So, Mike, I heard you say sustainability before as a sustainable organization. And I know one of your mottos or missions is to try and be as sustainable and innovative in this market. So how are you guys measuring that? How are you trying to deliver sustainable projects? And can you expand a little bit on that?
I mean, we all agree 40% of all emissions worldwide come from real estate. We have a duty as developers to put an initiative in place, and not only with our contractors, but also with our investors. And it's one of our prerequisites. If you're going to invest with RoseFellow, understand that all the buildings we're going to be building moving forward are net carbon projects, that it be in the province of Quebec or Ontario. We sit in a great position to be able to do something great for the environment, not only for us, but for our kids and our grandkids.
Like Mike said, carbon zero will be at the forefront going forward. It's actually evolved a lot faster than we thought. You look at LEED. LEED took a good 10 years before it became the norm. carbon zero for real estate, especially in industrial, is happening within 2-3 years. So we decided we're actually launching our third industrial fund. All projects within it will be carbon zero. With regards to how do you measure, I'll say this, I have difficulty with that. I mean, for me, how do you measure anything? If we could do a little bit of good for our city, for our environment, for the future, I think that's enough. That makes me happy. Outside of that, as a society, we're building buildings that are going to likely outlive us. It's important. That's part of the legacy. These are the projects that people are going to remember. We're looking at Class A industrial buildings in Montreal. If they're carbon zero, if they're LEED, we've done our job.
So tough though. I mean, we got to remember that we live in Canada.
Yep.
So everything above the 49th parallel is cold.
That's right.
So
I guess snow load capacity.
We have. So I think that makes it a bit tough on projects. So I mean, you guys must have to go through some hoops to be able to get this done.
There's a learning curve required, and not only from our trades and professionals, from RoseFellow, but also from municipalities, city officials. Every city wants a Class A, full precast, construction with green roofs and basically everything in the world. Well, it's counterintuitive to carbon zero initiatives. On top of that, to your point, we live in Quebec. It's too cold. Once it hits minus 15 degrees, you need gas. Yeah, absolutely. So there's got to be a little bit of a give and take with the municipalities to achieve these requirements.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but you had mentioned to me in the past, if you're putting precast, which is concrete is not net emission zero.
It's counterintuitive to the objective. Concrete comes from a factory that's a high pollutant that goes against your prerogative, which is to build a net carbon zero building. So that's where the kind of the education comes in with different municipalities. Say, okay, we all want a sexy building, want a beautiful building, but let's look at the products we're using to build that building. And if we're going to build a carbon zero building, well, we got to alter the perception of what that is. Is it really precast? Can we not use another type of fabric? And these are some of the other types of fabric. So we're not the only ones learning. Municipalities are learning, city officials are learning, so everybody's kind of in that process of change right now.
Interesting story. We get asked enormously to include photovoltaics, solar panels on our buildings. Well, our Hydro-Quebec actually doesn't have a program where this power is recuperated into their system. Once the building uses it for basic life and safety, the rest of this energy that's recuperated is unused. Wasted. But we're seeing football-sized roofs with this requirement. Well, it's completely wasted. We have to figure out as a group, everybody involved, how to actually take this energy, give it back to the city, to the government.
Okay. I want to talk to you guys about the national industrial market, which is really. But before that, I think it's time for another sip of wine. Okay. As you'll see, it evolves in the glass. It's been sitting here for probably around 20 minutes, 25 minutes now. Got some nice rose petal hints on it.
Very nice.
Big fan of Barolo wines. If anybody was to ask me, I would tell you that it is the Burgundy of Italy.
Very nice.
So guys, we talked a little bit about COVID before, about that kind of put the fire on, really accelerated the demand in industrial real estate, accelerated rents, accelerated absorption. Where do you see us now, having gone through that? I think e-commerce is taking a little bit of a backside now. We're seeing some of the tech companies that are going through some cost-cutting measures. Where do you guys see demand right now on a national front for industrial?
On my end, I still think e-commerce is going to be there. I think it's just settling into the growth that it needed to be. I think, again, the pandemic just amplified that, and they tried to satisfy demand, so they overextended themselves. So I think it's settling down. It will continue to grow. I think e-commerce is still the future. You see more and more boxes arriving at people's houses, workplace. I mean, there's a reason for that.
I had 3 today at the office.
My wife sends every day a box. So I don't think that's going to stop. I also think there's emerging markets that we don't even think of. You know, you see what's happening with AI, especially recently, robotics. I actually see that industrial will satisfy industries that don't even exist.
Also, if you look at automation, you look at food. There's another one. You know, we all had this tendency during COVID, pre-COVID, and still today to go to the grocery store. The big push from all these grocers now is to get their clientele to go online.
Yeah.
And how did these orders get served in the past? Well, the order was sent to the grocery store, and then you had a grocer in the store who would actually go up and down the aisles, pack your order, and ship it to your house. It doesn't work. How is it done today? The order's taken, it's sent into an automated facility, and that order is then shipped to your house. Well, automation can't be done in a building that's 18 foot clear with a slab that's got cracks through it. You need a new facility. We're still playing catch up. We don't have enough quality space forget about Montreal, I think in Canada to service that market, this new market. I think we'll still be playing catch up for at least another 5 years.
Yeah, I think the growth is in front of us.
Absolutely.
I also think manufacturing is going to come back. I already see it happening, which is good. I think the pandemic taught the world that we need to be a lot more self-sufficient. So manufacturing is going to grow. E-commerce will grow. There's a lot of companies that have not pushed themselves fully into e-commerce. You know, the big boys, the national ones have, but we'll call them all the A- and B players have not. They have to grow.
And I think what Amazon taught us is that we can want something and get it the next day, which caused
same day now.
Same day now, which caused everybody outside of that Amazon bubble to have the same wants from their clientele. Well, how do you service that? I spoke about grocers. You want to be able to go online, put your order in, and have it the next day. You need facilities to be able to supply that.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about rates, guys. Montreal, and I'll talk to Montreal. You guys can maybe talk a little bit more on a national basis, but
sure.
Montreal went from probably a $5 market for the last 25 years to now our average is over $16. We're playing a bit of catch up to some of the other markets. I think it's going to be very interesting to see now that the new tax rules are out, that additional rents have gone so high.
Yeah.
What kind of impact that's going to have on net rents. But I guess my question is, every quarter we're still seeing growth. Is there a ceiling? Are we going to see are any markets across Canada that are going to be performing better? What are your thoughts?
50% growth year after year. I don't think we're going to see that. I think that's going to slow down significantly. There'll still be growth, and again, I think it comes down to the availability that we have, not only here but across Canada. There's such a lack of it.
I think it needs to slow down a little bit. I think everybody needs to reset. I think it's good for the market. Things have jumped so quickly that I'm not sure all of the occupants and tenants have been able to adapt. I don't think it calming down for a bit is a bad thing. I'll say that right off the bat. Again, keep in mind, this has been great for our investors. You know, these rental increases above pro forma expectations are very good for the bottom line. But I think as an industry, like any of the trades who increased their pricing during the pandemic, I think everybody gouged a little too much. I think a reset is required. I don't foresee them going down. What I do see happening, though, is right now the average that you mentioned, $16, is across the board for 18-foot clear
Correct.
to 32-foot
all
clear.
asset class of industrial.
And I think that's where the problem is. I think there needs to be a larger gap between the existing property and Class A property. That's one avenue. I'd also say well-located sites will now start commanding a premium that we haven't seen actually. Now it's like whatever you could get, you're getting. It doesn't matter if you're in the suburb or in the downtown core. I think that's where we're going to start seeing a difference in the rates. With regards to the rest of Canada, unfortunately, one thing you can't make more of is land. So I don't see Toronto or Vancouver actually lowering the rates. I don't think they can. They're growing geographically, but if you take the top 5 sites in each of these cities, these will never go down. People will have to pay to be there. And as much as my earlier comment was, I'm hoping to see a decrease, there's one stat that really stood out to me, was recent. We were talking with an occupant, Mike and I, and I think our total gross rent was near $30. And for us in the industry, $30 it's an incredible number.
Yeah,
it's higher than Toronto.
It's higher, but I'll never forget what he told me. He's like, Sam, Mike, this is 8% of our cost. The real estate is more important than the rent. When you stop and look at it in those metrics, you take yourself out of the field that for us is our life. You're like, oh my God, they're right.
You're viewing it through the eyes of the user.
Exactly.
They need to be where they need to be.
And his comment was, my issue is not my real estate, my issue is my labor pool and transport. Those are my issues. When I can solve those with my real estate, it's a win-win. And if I have to pay $30 to be in an area where there's a huge labor pool and it's close to me to get to my facilities such as UPS, FedEx, and Canada Post or the airport, I've solved all my issues. So I can pay the premium to be in those markets.
Well, we're really restricted here in terms of land.
We are.
I mean, Mark and I talk about how we're more like Vancouver than we are Toronto. We're locked in, and to rezone land is, you tell us what it's like to rezone land.
Agricultural land will not be rezoned in Quebec. That's what...
Buy it for your grandkids is what I say.
Protected by God.
Yeah.
There you go.
With regards to other zoning, I can tell you most municipalities, especially here in Quebec, don't want to change their zoning. They're also very much adverse to warehouse and distribution, which unfortunately is a mistake. The distribution of today, the e-commerce, these are not simply one person. They have huge employee base. Cities don't understand that. So finding industrial warehousing land in Montreal or sites to redevelop, very, very difficult. And that's where the premium will come.
On the island.
On the island.
Absolutely.
So Vancouver, super expensive. Toronto, expensive, but just slightly higher on the net rate basis than we are here in Montreal. If you had to pick one of those two to start working in, what do you think you would do? Would you be more of a GTA, or would you guys be more moving out west?
For me, I love the Toronto market. I would say the Toronto market simply because exactly what you said, Norm. There's not only the GTA, there's all the surrounding, Mississauga. All of these, different areas have incredible potential. Yes, the land values are high, but there's a base there that works. If I had to move out west, love the Calgary market. We've looked at it in the past. I think it's a great market to be in. Vancouver is a great market, but a challenging market. If I were to enter Vancouver, I'd almost look at it differently. I would automatically start there with a 2-story building. I think it's the only way to make those metrics work.
There is one there now, right?
There is, and I think going forward, that's the only way. Even in Toronto or Montreal, we're talking very Class A industrial sites, on island. That's the only way these are going to work in the future.
So you foresee those happening on the island?
No choice. They're going to happen.
You know what you know. Sam and I spent a lot of time researching Toronto. Obviously, when you spend all that time, you get an appetite for the market. There'll be a time where we're going to spend a lot of time researching Vancouver in that market, and we may be sitting a year from now saying, you know what, Vancouver is where we want to be. So for now, I'd have to agree with Sam, Toronto, but that's just because we've done a lot of research on that market as opposed to Vancouver.
So the option that I didn't give, which is the option on the side, is Calgary. And I think what's interesting about Calgary, although the rents are slightly lower, depressed compared to some of the other major markets in Canada, there's tons of land there. So I think we're now seeing with rates so high in Vancouver that companies are starting to shift and saying, why don't we move over to Calgary? Sure, we're going to have more transport or it'll be a different operation, but we're having especially in your logistics business, they're halving their costs. Yeah, literally halving their costs. So it's going to be an interesting market in Canada over the next 5 years. Go ahead.
Bringing that up, I did just thinking of something. What do you think of rail? Because if people are going to use those markets, transport from west to east or vice versa, What do you think the future of rail looks like?
It's a great added value, one that's hard to come by with newer buildings.
All transportation nodes are important. Rail, sea. If you could get a port around you, all of these is where the future is. Basically, cover all your bases. Highways, all public amenities, all transportation methods. The closer you are to all of this, the likely of success, regardless of market and market conditions. That's how you'll beat the market.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about something that's on everybody's minds right now: the debt situation in Canada. Well, actually, I shouldn't say in Canada, worldwide. Yeah. We've definitely seen the most aggressive rate hikes in history. 425 basis points in less than a year. It's putting the squeeze on a lot of developers. A lot of developers are actually putting projects on hold if they haven't gone into the ground. How's the debt situation affecting you?
Thankfully, none of our projects have been put on hold. So I say that. I've heard what's happened to other developers. Not a great situation. Some are due to the economics, some timing, and we're speaking generally in development. Sometimes if you're in the condo industry, it's just the wrong time for it. I think it's going to stabilize. We see it stabilizing. Cap rates also should stabilize. Again, I think it went too low. People, took advantage of that way too much, and they started building their pro formas based on metrics that considered them being low. And the only way you can make your returns profitable is with a low cap rate. That's a mistake. There's got to be a little give and take on that. For our next set of developments, and when I say the next set, we're in construction now for 4 million feet. We have another 4 million square feet starting in the next 4 to 5 months. All those projects are a go. All those projects have metrics that could sustain the current lending rates and cap rates. Notwithstanding what I just said, yes, interest rates are are high. You still need banks to be there. The danger is if banks just decide to stop giving money regardless of rates, that's when we have a problem. That's something nobody could overcome. We need our banks to be there with us.
And what's playing in everyone's favor is that unemployment is low. The demand is still extremely high, and I think that's what's kind of balancing things out, and why there's still banks and there's still lenders out there who are willing to support the types of projects that we do.
So, not that anybody really knows the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask you the question regardless. There's a lot of chatter about a recession in the market. Your boots on the ground. You're seeing the demand. You're seeing tenants. You're seeing people that want to expand, retract, move. What's your thoughts? Are we going to see a recession? If so, is it going to hurt? Most do, but how hard is this one going to hurt?
For me, there's
No, go ahead.
For me, there's 2 points to recession. So one, there's the definition of a recession. By definition, recession is a negative growth for 2 consecutive quarters.
Correct.
By that metric, I think we're already there.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll say it bluntly. I think we're already there. Then there's the other side, which I've always felt recession is almost like a social feeling, how people perceive the market, the industry, the economy, how people feel, and I don't see that. Regardless of what's happening with the financial institutions, everybody we talk to just feels like this is a pause. They feel positive about where things are. Our economy in Canada is actually very strong generally. Employment is low. People are doing relatively well. We don't have the same constraints like they do in the United States. I just think this is almost like a pause more than a true full-on recession.
I'd have to agree. A lot of people that we speak to have the same comment, where it's 2023 will be kind of flatline, and then things will pick up again in 2024. Now, we hope there won't be no flatline. It'll just keep on growing, but we do have to expect that you have to control inflation, and by doing so, you're increasing the interest rates, which I think we've plateaued. I think we're going to watch it.
We hope so. I think the last one, personally, to put my personal opinion into this, I think the last one was a bit overkill. I think one of the issues that we're facing is that, we're seeing that the labor, we've been adding jobs, but that's a lagging metric. those job numbers are from months before. And I think that we're going to be in a situation where, every rate hike that they do now, it has exponential damage to the economy. So I'm hoping we've plateaued. I think that Canada, I agree with you guys. I think Canada is well positioned because of, one, we're big in natural resources, some of the biggest in the world. We've got, a great population, great people. Labor is getting more and more skilled. So I think it's a good story about Canada. So
Absolutely.
Where do you think we're going to be in 3 to 5 years?
Again, I think 2023 will be kind of people will coast. We're not going to see anything happen, in my opinion, with the interest rates. They don't want to drop them prematurely, so they're going to wait as long as they can, and I think that will fall into 2024. So if you ask me where we're going to be 3 to 4 years from now, in a great position.
Excellent. So not to switch gears a little bit here, but you guys are in the process of selling one of the best development sites in the city. And it's in Montreal. We're not going to talk about anything confidential. But this is a site that garnered national attention, coast to coast. Mm-hmm. Can you talk about that site? Can you give us a bit of what your thoughts are? What was the driving force behind you wanting to put that site on the market? Maybe give us just
talk about the history of it.
Yeah, maybe just give us a bit of the the metrics, the size of the site, and that type of stuff.
Absolutely.
So this one hurts personally. I'll say this again. Mike and I started this. We're developers. We have a passion for development. We acquired this site with existing business in place, a business that had an operating net operating income that could potentially grow, but for us was almost a byproduct of how we hold the site for a couple of years. It hurts because in our view, this was always one of the best developable industrial sites in the city. If we were to ever do a 2-story industrial building in Montreal, it's probably the site to do it on.
Look, not to throw salt in the wound, but I think it's actually one of the best developable sites in Canada.
Thanks.
Center ice on the island of Montreal. But then again, it goes to the next point of the discussion is we've seen, not only have we seen rental rates go crazy and meteoric rises, we've also seen land prices go extremely high.
Absolutely.
When we were, the site that you guys have in the West Island, when we started in this business, that was probably $5 a foot.
Yeah.
When Arnold started in the business, it might have been 50 cents.
That was still farm.
They were bringing power to the site.
Yeah. So is there an end to these land prices? Are we going to see a little bit more stable? Obviously, they're directly correlated to the rental rates that are going. So what are your thoughts on that?
Just to continue on a little bit on my train where we were going with this. So we bought this again with the express intent of redeveloping. Land values went up. There was an operating business on this site. What ended up happening is this operating business ended up becoming such a valuable NOI business that the site itself, on a net operating income basis, as well as the land value basis, basically made it so that it's moot for us to redevelop it. We also have a responsibility to our investors, which is maximize the return. Keep in mind, we always wanted to develop the site, but when you start running the two metrics, it became very difficult to put together a business case that made sense to redevelop the site.
Well, if you can make the same profit by selling versus going through the whole development and that, it becomes an easier answer.
That's exactly the answer.
Exactly. Right. And when you tell your investors you can 10x a property within a year and a half, it's hard for them to look and say, do we really want to hold on?
Happy investors.
Exactly.
Happy investors. So we're sitting right now, I guess this, I want to cap off our discussion and this is not just, a Montreal issue. This is a GTA. This is a Vancouver. We're sitting with the lowest vacancy we've ever seen. We're right now in the GMA, we're at 0.6%. Yeah. As far as I'm concerned, effective zero. How do we solve this crisis?
That's
Besides, sorry, Mike. Besides the like we need to build more. You were saying before, very difficult with zoning issues, very difficult to acquire new land sites. So are we in this perpetual circle for forever?
There's another factor you didn't mention as well. I mean, the labor pool, which you spoke about earlier. You can need the space, but if you can't find the people to deliver within that building, why even be in that market? That'd be anywhere. How many times have you gone to a Tim Hortons in the last year and it was closed at 3 o'clock in the afternoon? Not because they chose to, but because they couldn't get people to work. It's an unfortunate and a big issue that we have in all markets.
That's why the advent of more modern facilities for automation, artificial intelligence, software, robotics. It's here.
And if you're going to integrate that into a project, you're going to design it around the technology.
Around that, yeah.
I don't think you can solve for the lack of square footage, especially in Montreal. We just don't have quality Class A industrial space. Again, we're building 4 million square feet. I think we've tracked another 5-6 million square feet from other developers under construction. Seems like it's all taken or spoken for, or close to it. I think our market could take another 20 before we see a serious dent in the vacancy rate. And even with that, the vacancy rate, my opinion, could probably rise on an average to 8, 9, 10%, and we would still be okay in the Class A industrial space. If your metrics are good, you'll do fine. It's simply finding the right occupant for the right location. And there's lower value, lower ceiling industrial spaces that I think also have a market. I don't think we'll be able to solve for it quickly, though. That's an issue that's going to persist simply because Montreal's always been a little bit behind the rest of Canada. We will never grow at the rate of the rest of the Canadian cities.
Any thoughts of building smaller bay buildings, i.e. 150,000 square feet with 5 tenants?
We do it now. Our portfolio has a mix of smaller buildings of 95,000 square feet, like the one we're doing in East End, all the way up to 400,000 or 500,000 square feet, and we give those options. And what we do is we do some proper analysis within that market, and we determine is the demand within that segment 10, 20, 30,000 square feet, and we'll build accordingly. We don't limit ourselves to big boxes.
We actually enjoy having that diversity in our fund for our fund members.
Yeah.
The issue that I've noted, especially in one specific occurrence where we put two twin buildings, each one was about 125,000 square feet, with the designed for a multi-tenant. What ended up happening is one of the buildings was entirely leased to one occupant, and the other building was leased 50% to one occupant. So you start looking at that and you're saying, well, we could have put one singular 300,000 square foot building, probably would have been leased to. We want to see smaller bay things. I think for the future, 5-10 years from now, it is the right approach. Short term, though, it is not financially justifiable. But again, we think it's a good mix to have in our funds.
Well, sorry, go ahead, Arnold.
Yeah, what do you think the small bay would look like to you? Is it 5,000? Is it affordable to do those smaller flex buildings, or are those days of development completely over and in the rearview mirror?
With regards to smaller 5 to 10,000 feet,
Yeah,
I don't
5, 10,
I don't
15,
think on the
20.
leasing market it makes sense. I think construction costs, even though they've come down, are just too high. And I'll give you an example: a demising wall. It's $1,000 a linear foot. Sure, you could get a little bit more, a little bit less, depends on how you design it. If you have a small building with 5-6 demising walls, right there, that's a lot of money. Where those could work, not something that's done often here in Quebec. It's known as the strata condos. Sure. We don't have a tendency to do them here in Quebec. I think that is the way to do it. But on the leasing market, I don't think the rates make sense.
So what we have today is what we will see in the future. In that size category.
It's hard to make the numbers work on the small bay stuff.
Which means that the rents are going to continue to rise on the small bay.
Absolutely.
Because no one's building it.
Again, depending on your bay size and the depth,
Yep.
under 30,000 square feet, very hard. Very, very hard. You have to start thinking of building materials. You have more glazing. more HVAC units, demising walls. It just becomes incredibly much more expensive to build smaller buildings.
Interesting.
And if you think of some of the numbers that we know of in the market, $500, $600, $700 a foot for 2,000-3,000 square foot industrial condos, I can't see how.
What was that number?
$500-$600 a foot.
Wow.
Yeah, for some of the strata projects that we've heard about. It's
But
just
I
hard to
could
make
see
the
somebody
numbers
make a
work.
niche out of that.
Yeah.
But they're going to charge a significant premium. And it'll be a small guy who has only 4,000 or 5,000 feet who really looks at it as renting versus a mortgage, say, okay, let's do it. And for that, it could work.
Well, guys, thank you very much. Mike Jager, Sam Tsoumas, co-founders of RoseFellow. It's been a real pleasure having you guys here. You've been big supporters of Colliers. I hope the sentiment is reciprocal. I can say that our team did a fantastic transaction with you guys last year with Nespresso.
Thank you.
It was smooth, tenants very happy, beautiful building. So we look forward to doing future deals with you. So I'll conclude on this. Arnold and Mark, wine tasting, real estate, RoseFellow edition. Gentlemen, cheers.
Cheers, everybody.
All
Thank
the
you.
best for 2023.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks for listening to Colliers Talks podcast. To learn more about Colliers Canada, our experts, and our solutions, visit collierscanada.com or find us on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook.